Yes, welcome. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the webinar on the Sustainable Fish Farm Management, hosted by the Best Fish Farmer Competition, and who you can see the partners there: Aquaculture Academy, the Dutch Embassy, Lattice, and Lariv. We are so happy to have you. Thank you for taking time over your beginning of your weekend to learn with us on this important topic. My name is Lydia Oguyo. I'm an analyst at Lattice Aquaculture Limited. And at Lattice, we enhance food security in the blue economy to create sustainable livelihoods for people through capacity building, technical support, financing, and as well improving market access. I'm so happy to hear. I'm happy to see you. And let's learn. Yes, and I'll take you through a few house rules. Oh, sorry, let's go to the agenda first, this is the introduction, and we'll be met with the first speaker, followed by the question and answer session. We have 4 speakers who will be speaking to us regarding this topic, and after each session, we'll have a question and answer. We have allocated a question and answer docket where you can ask your questions, that may have not been covered during the speaking sessions. Every speaker has 15 minutes, which is very little time, but we'll try to cover as much as we can. The video recording and the presentations will be shared with you after, so don't you worry about trying to take screenshots. We have you covered since we've gotten your emails and your details. Yes, thank you. I said, my name is Lydia from Lattice, and when you're getting into any African home, of course, you're told there are house rules. And before you get into the door, you're supposed to leave your shoes at the door before you get in. So similar concept here, just that to remind you that this is a very interactive session and we'd like to hear from you. So if you have any questions, just put them in the chat box right there. And as we are doing this, please let us know who you are. Just give us what is your name, where are you coming from? Are you a student? Are you a fish farmer? Are you a graduate? Are you something else? We'd like to know who you are. We'd like to know where you're coming from. We'd like to know what are your expectations for this session, for this webinar. So just write in the chat box, introduce yourself, tell us who you are, tell us where you're coming from. Right, and this is of course, expected, which should not be explained, but you should be respectful to everyone, treat everyone with courtesy. Make sure you're respectful in your comments, be respectful in your while you're asking questions, while you're speaking to the speakers, and of course, don't use any offensive language. And also just don't overuse the chat features. Just use it when you need to, when you're asking your questions and when I ask for a response from you. I hope that's clear. Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Claudie, who will give us an overview of what the Best Fish Farmer Competition is about and tell you everything about what we've done all through. Claudie, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Lydia. Thank you for the introduction. We are very happy to have all of you on board. I see the numbers climbing up, so that's really, really good to see. We are here, of course, today as part of the Best Fish Farmer Competition. So this competition is hosted in Kenya, started from the early January on to the last day of February. So the subscription is still open. Please go to the link I shared in the chat. Click on it and subscribe to the competition. Thereby, we can assess who is going to be the best innovative and sustainable fish farmer of 2024 in Kenya. So we are making sure, together with a group of jury members, early March, who is going to be assigned to the best fish farmer, but also the best agriculture students. So if you're either one of the two, open the link and subscribe. So we're looking for someone who does the production very efficiently, and the productivity is really, really good. Innovation and adoption of technology is very much supported. Sustainable farming practices, which you will also hear about in this webinar. Environmental sustainability, community efforts. So please all put it into your application for the competition itself. And we are very, very happy to have you today. So please go to the website, subscribe, and there are some great prizes to be won. So hopefully see you at the early April. That's when the award ceremony will be hosted. I saw Vincent and Sabrina already in the group as well. So the photo you see on the right side, that's when the award ceremony was last year, hosted in Kisumu. And the top 5 fish farmers and the top 5 aquaculture students will be invited and will be covered financially to join the on-site award ceremony. So please subscribe yourself, and there are some great prizes to be won. Thanks, Lydia.
Thank you very much, Claudia, for that elaborate overview of the Best Fish Farmer competition. As she said, there's a link on the chat where you can join the competition. Right, I'd like to welcome our very first speaker of this session, Alex Akidiva, who will be talking about the sustainable aquaculture production. Alex is a food systems expert with 10 years experience in working with local communities in areas of climate action, transformation of food, land, and water systems, while delivering on strategic approaches driving sustainable food systems, green growth, and circular economy. He's a trained aquatic scientist as well as a food systems fellow by Egerton University. He's currently working as a program officer at Micro Enterprises Support Program, where he's involved in implementation of livelihood and market systems initiatives. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Alex. Can you just react with a clap or on the reaction options as we welcome him? Alex, you're welcome.
Much thanks. Good evening to each and every one of us. It's a good afternoon. I don't know if it is good morning from wherever location you are. So as I've been introduced, my name is Alex Akidiva, and I'm here to talk about sustainable aquaculture development. Can you share the presentation from your end, or I share from my side?
We have it there for you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to start with a brief overview of the aquaculture sector. This is globally, and from the graph which is being presented, you can see that we have the capture fisheries and also the aquaculture sector. And what is evident currently is the capture fisheries have already leveled off, and this is a trend from 1990. We have seen the aquaculture sector, it is on a growing trajectory, and therefore we have to consider the sustainability of the aquaculture sector. Next. So defining aquaculture, I've tried to simplify this to simply the responsible aquaculture production. And in the responsible aquaculture production is a production which is minimizing the environmental effects. You have to minimize the environmental disruption to while you are doing your activities. You have to minimize the pollution, and also a venture should also try to protect the biodiversity. So you find that when we are talking about this, we should also consider sufficient yields, which in the production line, we should have considered the aspects around the energy, we have to also consider the risks which are also being involved, considering we are leveraging on the environment and also people. And therefore, all this should also translate into increased profits. So next. Why are we talking about this sustainability? Is it the right time we should be talking about it, or are we late about it, or should we wait and talk about it later? So you find that worldwide, the sector, aquaculture sector is growing at a faster rate. One of the food sector which is on a high growth. We are estimating it at 11% per annum. And you find that aquaculture is key because it is providing a source of nutritious animal protein. You've heard of the significance of fish protein as compared to other livestock protein. And therefore, when we are narrowing down to this, we are also saying that it has much lower greenhouse gas emission when you compare to other livestock sector. And therefore, we should try as much as we can. As we increase the production, we should also be environmentally conscious. Climate change is also impacting our aquatic food systems, and therefore, we should also try to see how can we have an environmental steward in production. So we should be ecologically efficient, environmentally benign, climate sensitive, and diversified in terms of production. Next. So as the population is increasing, there is a tendency of us to also endeavor to have increased food production. And therefore, this is going to increase the competition in our water resources. We have the energy and also land, which is always a limiting factor under production. And therefore, we have to minimize the little we have so that we can maximize on the production. So when we do this sustainably, we find aquaculture is a quite ideal source which will provide our future protein for feeding the increasing population. When we are talking of aquaculture sustainability, we have the pillars which are driving this, and one of it is responsible production. Responsible production is that one which you are sure you are mandated to play a specific role, and therefore you should endeavor to have a production which is improving the livelihoods. So that should also, should be one of the pillars which should be considered. And then also, when we are talking about governance and policy reforms, we find the whole issue around sustainability is vested on the government and policy reforms, which will also be driving the agenda. And responsibility also lies in the environmental controls and regulations, which we've seen the environmental bodies are also putting in place. Digital technology is also one of the aspects which should also be considered under the aquaculture sustainability. And then also impacts of climate change are also evident everywhere, and therefore we should also try to consider that. Also, we have the genetic diversity. I know we've been used to maybe 1 or 2 fish species, and therefore we should also try to be diverse in our production. What you as a farmer can you do to ensure you are doing responsible aquaculture interventions? So this is at a farm level, and when you are driving this discussion, you should endeavor to balance the socio-economics dimensions, because it is not only about the economics, but also the social bit of aquaculture. So any venture you are venturing into should also consider that. And then also the biosecurity and disease control. It is also one of the venture which, if we are not conscious, then we are going to lose our stocks. And then also we have the feed ingredients and the technologies which we are employing. We find when we rely on protein, which is also being used by human being, then we are not going to be sustainable. And also we have also feeding technologies, which likely are wasting a lot of food, and therefore we should also try to see how we can move away from it. Genetic strain improvements, we should also endeavor to be diverse, not only relying on one species, but we should also try to see how can we have energy efficient, good converters into our production. And then also building the aquaculture value chain, we should also try to approach the 3R. This is a resilient, robust, and also reliant food system into our production. Technological innovations and transfer is also key for us to have productive, efficient systems. And then also not forgetting about the climate resilience in our production, which will all have an impact on human capacity development. Next. We find we have the government authorities who should also be putting in much effort to support the bottom up interventions. So at a government level, when we are looking for a sustainable aquaculture, we should look for a comprehensive government reforms, which is balancing all the three aspects of sustainability. Government should endeavor to promote the ecosystem resilience. Can we bounce back to our normal state after disruption? And then also, government should also promote the private sector partnerships who are key in value chain approaches. We should also promote the social responsibility and equity. Are we balancing, looping in each and every one of within the community? And then also the government should also foster the code of conduct. These are regulations revolving around the best management practices in aquaculture. And then we should also be complementing other conservation initiatives, not leaning towards aquaculture where we are destroying the nature, and then also committed to sector reforms. We should be adaptive while also supporting the science-based systems which foster technology transfer. So we are saying that the government can comfortably click on the issue of policy and scientific research in the development of aquaculture sector. We should also endeavor to strengthen the synergies between the various actors who are working on the sustainable aquaculture production. Also, we should endeavor to foster the collaborations and then the partnerships, maybe using examples like the public-private partnerships. Technology innovations is also very key, and also borrowing from what has worked elsewhere, and then also promoting the environmental responsibility across the gender is also key. And then also we should largely borrow from the data and monitoring systems which are available for us to improve our production. Next. Yeah, so I think that is where we are coming to the end of our presentation. Maybe I'm going to take this back to Lydia, maybe to pave way for the question and answer session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex, for that insightful session. If you have any questions, kindly just put them in the chat. And while we are doing that, I'd like to acknowledge the people who are in the room. Thank you, Fred Agalo from Kisumu County. Thank you for joining us. Gordon Ouko, fish farmer from Luanda Kotieno. Thank you so much for joining us. Stephen Achachi from Migori County. Thank you for joining. Luondo from Kakuma Refugee Camp Turkana. Karibu sana. Just put in your questions in the chat for Alex. Charity Kelsey from Homa Bay County, Karibu, welcome. Daniel Duayo from Daje Aqua Farm Limited in Rwanda. Did sell fish farming equipment and also a fish farmer. Thank you so much for joining us from Rwanda, all the way from Rwanda. James Musili from Makueni, thank you for joining us. Same to Victor Omondi from The Hague. Wow, from the Netherlands. Thank you for joining us. Anyone with any question for Alex concerning the opportunities that are there in the aquatic food system? All right. I said we have we have a question from Brian Walela. He asks, what's your take on eucalyptus as an effect of aquaculture sustainability? Alex?
Yeah, I think this has been one of the discussion which has been going on countrywide. Eucalyptus is a heavy consumer of water, and therefore it is draining a lot of soil moisture, which is having an impact on our water systems. And that is why we are trying as much as we can, we replace it with our indigenous tree species. So the main impact will be on the water availability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. Brian, I hope your question is answered. There's another question from Toko. What is a fish main species in aquaculture in Africa? What is the main fish species in aquaculture in Africa? I hope that question makes sense. Yeah, what is the main fish species?
Yes, I think Toko is trying to inquire about the species for production, and maybe I can start somewhere defining aquaculture. It is not only about fish production. When we talk of aquaculture, we are also talking of plants and animals, inclusive of fish, which are under production. So for Africa, we have seen we are much biased on fish, which is mainly tilapia and African catfish. But we've seen ventures whereby we've seen the seaweeds coming in at a higher rate, and also other aquatic animals which are being also reared, like crocodiles. Thank you.
Thank you. Toko, I hope your question is answered. She says thank you. Oh, that's great. Any other question? We'll have another question and answer session, an overall one with all the speakers at the end of the training. But before that, there's another question from Stephen Achachi. My question is, I have a pond of 20 meters by 10 meters with a capacity of 1,500 fish species. I have been feeding my fish for last 6 months and I have stunted growth of fish. Just imagine with all the requirements needed in farm management. What do you think could be the problem? And remember, I should have harvested my fish by now.
Sorry,
Alex?
this is
It's a long question.
Stephen
Stephen Achachi.
Achachi. Sorry
Yes.
for taking long. That is much. It is almost, you should have done already 2 seasons by now. So definitely this is a stunted growth, and my advice is you better stop feeding the stock and you start afresh. You find that when we are talking about the growth of fish, it is being driven by various factors which we can't maybe screen and say it is about the fish feeds, it is about the water quality. So you find there are an umbrella factors which as a farmer you have to consider. And what we usually advise farmers is around the quality of seeds. This is at the fingerlings. Where did you get them? Are they of the right genetic strains? So as a farmer, that is where you have to start from. Make sure you get the right seed. Make sure you get it from an authenticated nursery, which has a farm history. So you might find that when you come to your farm, you are doing all that is needed, but you got it wrong at the seedlings. So that is where you ought to have started if you are putting all other factors of production under your watch. And then also when the feeds is also another crucial element, which as a farmer you have to consider when you are doing your fish. And you should also know, this will also be discussed by my colleague, but you should know we have stages of fish which require different feeds. So Stephen, we have a myriad of factors which you have to consider, and maybe we'll be willing to engage with you. If you can drop your email there, then we can do a follow-up just to ensure that you are getting it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. And Stephen, our feeds expert will also answer your question later in her session. So she's willing to give you her insight on that. Same to Luondo, who's asked about the other alternative when you're running out of industrial feeds. She's going to give you an answer to that. Alex, shortly, you just have 3 more minutes. What is the lifespan of tilapia?
Let me go. Lifespan of tilapia is 11 years. This is under a natural environment when it is uncontrolled. When you leave it in the wild where there are no predators, if there was no any interference, then it will go for 11 years and then it dies naturally.
Thank you. Is mariculture being put into consideration? This is a question from Sylvia Wambui.
This is mariculture. We are mainly concentrating within the oceans, and therefore we have some sources who are considering it, especially when you go to the national, this is the worldwide data. When they are compiling their data, they have categorized it is either farmed fish species, which are all under aquaculture, and therefore they'll tend to be silent on mariculture and then the capture fisheries. So those are the 2 main categories, but other sources will go ahead and differentiate between aquaculture and mariculture. And then also you'll also find we have also for brackish water, which is in between the mariculture and aquaculture production. So for this case, we are including mariculture into this discussion.
Thank you, Alex. There's still more questions. I love this class. As a teacher, I enjoy this lesson because of the interaction that you're getting from the chat. But due to the time constraints, we need to move on to the next speaker. I'll just let you know that the questions have been noted. So we'll have another question and answer session where Alex will come back and answer the other questions, and we also have other experts as well who are going to give their inputs. That's okay? But I'd like to thank you so much, Alex. Let's give him a clap from wherever you are. Use that clapping emojis to say thank you for this very amazing session on sustainable aquaculture production. Thank you, Alex. So right next, we'll have John Eric, who will be joining us to speak about the different farming systems and water quality considerations. John Eric is a technical aquaculture project manager at Lattice Aquaculture Limited. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Fisheries and Aquaculture Management from the University of Nairobi. He's trained by Foodtech Africa, and he has conducted extensive market studies in Kenyan and East African aquaculture. He's managed a successful fish farm and developed a decision-making tool for aquaculture investors in Kenya and Rwanda. His articles are published on respected platforms like the Fish Site and Aquaculture Without Borders. With over 7 years in fisheries and aquaculture in East Africa, he brings a wealth of expertise. And that's why we have him today, for him to take us through this session. John Eric, I'd like to welcome you. Karibu sana.
Thanks, Lydia, for the nice and lengthy introduction.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all fine from wherever you are. I see Dennis is busy walking. I envy you, Dennis. I'm stuck in a room somewhere. And Alex, thanks for introducing the session by giving us that insightful piece on sustainable aquaculture. In as much as we're producing fish now, we would love to see our children and their children keep doing the same thing without killing the world, which I believe is my definition of sustainability. So we'll try and narrow it down a little bit and see on how to get deep into the business. So I'm going to take us through the different farming systems, not in detail, but just in the context of sustainability. So when I wrote that question there, I thought it was very cool. I hope you guys find it cool as well. So what is in a system? I believe a very famous guy asked a similar question, but then he asked about what is in a name. So I believe the pictures on your screen are very familiar with you guys. You must have interacted with at least one of them because you're involved in aquaculture. So I didn't want to put words to describe a system because I believe everyone defines a system in a different way. But we can see ponds there. One pond is out in the open, so that's one. It's actually a farm in East Africa. Then the next pond is in a greenhouse. Then there's a tank that's indoors. There's another pond on the left corner, but then it has some aeration. And then, of course, we have the most famous one of late, which I'm sure most of you know, the cages in the lake. And then, of course, the last picture is what do we want to get from all this, which is fish. And I believe the fish in that picture really look nice. So we all want good quality fish at the end of the day. So what is in a system? What would make you choose one over the other if you were to make that choice? So all these systems have different production potentials, of course, and they require different levels of expertise for you to run them. And of course, you can't do them everywhere. Of course, the cages, you can't do them in Limuru because you don't have that lake in Limuru. You can't do this pond if you're on a very rocky mountain somewhere. It will be very difficult to get that kind of a pond. Maybe the second set of a pond. So there's so many factors to consider when just choosing which system to use. And just to, with the benefit of hindsight, is just to let you guys know that when you're competing for the best farmer, we are trying to see which system are you using, how sustainable is it, how are you impacting people. So just to put it in the context of the competition, I believe that each of you based on which system you're using, you must have a clear understanding of these systems. So when we rate them, we look at several factors. So let's go to the next slide. Next slide, please. So like I said, all the different systems have different production potentials. I don't know, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. We can hear you.
Yes, Eric,
Okay.
we can.
Thank you. So if you look at the next slide, it's not very clear from my end, but I believe you can squint your eyes and see through the blues. So we have different parameters and the different systems. So I've just selected the few systems that we use around this region and the different factors that you have to consider before you select them. So we do have a selection guide actually that if you answered a set of questions would help you just narrow down to which of these systems you'd want to use. So before I decide, do I want to use a green pond or a greenhouse pond, or do I want to aerate my pond, or do I put a cage, or I go intensive and use RAS, I must first ask myself how much fish do I want to produce, because each of these systems have different productivity levels. Like I said, the production potential is different as you come from one system to the other. So in productivity, remember, everyone I've trained, I always try to distinguish between productivity and production. Whereas production is just the number of fish you're getting out of the system, in productivity, you put in context, you put in the element of time and space. If we are producing 50 kilos in a system, how long did it take us to produce those 50 kilos? And what space did you use to produce those 50 kilos? If we are looking at it in terms of years, how many cycles do you have in a year? So if you look at the productivity in terms of the number of kilos per unit area, per unit time, you'll see across the board when you come from greenhouse ponds all the way to the intensive RAS, you can see the way the numbers increase. And it's a difference as big as day and night, because if one system is giving you 0.5 and another one is giving you 100, it's very hard to compare. And a disclaimer I would love to put out very clearly is we're not trying to champion one system over the other. We're just trying to paint the picture so that when you make your decision as an aquaculture practitioner, you know what you're going for. So you can see what the potential of adding aeration to ponds is vis-a-vis you just using an open green pond. What if you do a cage? You could produce 50 kilos just per unit meter in 1 year. Then we look at the maximum fish density. So this one, most people prefer to use stocking density instead, where we say we have 3 fish per square meter, or 50 fish per square meter, or 100 per square meter. But then I consider maximum fish density to be more correct than stocking density. So that's what we usually use. So what that number simply mean is if I have a green pond at any given point in time, in 1 cubic meter of water, I can only do up to a kilo of fish. So that means that if I'm growing my fish to say 500 grams, at the end of my cycle, I can only have 2 fish per square meter, which is now the stocking density. So if you are to compare with RAS, where I'm saying the maximum density is 50 kilos per cubic meter, if I grow the fish, for example, to 500 grams, it means that the 500 grams times the 50. So the numbers will always differ. And if you look at control of parameters, I was trying to look for a very qualitative way of, quantifying this. And I chose to use pluses. I believe Audrey might touch on that a bit when she'll be talking about the feed. So it's a spectrum where 1 plus is the minimal level of control you have, and the 4 pluses is the maximum you can have. So it's usually a scale of 1 to 5. So I'll tell you guys why I am using 1 to 4 in the control of parameters. So we say in green ponds, you don't have so much control. When it rains, your fish are being rained on, the temperatures go low. When it's very, very dry, your pond has very little water, the temperatures are very high. So in short, you're exposed to the elements. That's why we call it an open green pond. So it means we can't control so many things, but we have one plus. It's not like it's not a plus. So you can always recharge your water, you can refresh your water, things like that. If you put your ponds in a greenhouse, you see you have an extra plus. So as we all know, the greenhouse only helps you retain the temperature you already have. It doesn't add you extra temperature or anything like that. So it's more control than the open green pond, but it's not the ultimate control. When you aerate your ponds, you can see the control is increasing. And then it dips further when if you use a cage, because again, you're in the lake. If it's too windy, if it's calm, if we have algal blooms, if we all decide to go and bathe close to your cages, you can't control that. So that's why we have just one plus. That's why we always say the control when you have cages comes in during siting your cage rather than during the operation. So ensure you site your cage in the right place, because once you site them, you're open to the elements. And then RAS, we have the 4 pluses. So you have a lot of control. You can always increase your oxygen, reduce your oxygen. You can control your pH. You can recharge water, things like that. So basically, this just showing you what is in a system. I'm trying to answer the question I posted myself. And then, of course, FCR. Most of us, since we are all in aquaculture, must know what FCR is. So the feed conversion ratio. Uh, these numbers are not absolute. They're supposed to paint a picture as to what it looks like to use a certain system. So if I say in open green ponds, your FCR range is between 1.6 to 2.1. I know very many farmers who do as well as 1.3, and I know very many farmers who are also doing worse than 2.1. So saying 1.6 to 2.1, that is a typical open green pond, and in most cases, that's what you'll get. But you can see if you aerate the pond, your FCR improves 1.1 to 1.6. Again, you might have the aerated pond, but you still get an FCR of 2. So having the aerated pond is not all that it takes. You have to leverage what an aerated pond gives you so that you achieve this. So the example I always use is you have your car and you have the speedometer. It can go all the way to wherever, but most of us choose to drive at 80 kilometers per hour. Most of us do 100 kilometers per hour. So the figures here is just the potential of that system, but what you achieve from the system is based on how you operate that system. You could have a RAS system but still have an FCR of 2. So it's based on who you are and how you run it. So these figures are not absolute. Power use, I can say there's a bit of absoluteness here, because in an open green pond you're not using any power. It's 0 kilowatts hours. Same as greenhouse ponds. Aerated ponds, you can see you start using some power because of you have to run the aerators. And in RAS, you see it's a lot. In cages, it's 0. I'm saying a typical cage farmer. We might have some farmers who decide to put up fancy things around their cages. Again, you'll incur the power cost. On water use, it's usually very important to point this out, because Alex was just showing you that triangle, how whatever you do interacts with the social aspect of things, and the environment and the economics and all that. So we are at a time where we need resource efficient systems. So you can see that if I use an open green pond, I'm using 1,000 liters of water to produce just 1 kilo of fish, compared to RAS, where I'll be using 500 liters. If I just do as much as aerating my pond, I'll be using 1,000 liters to produce a kilo of fish. So water is one of those limited resources, and fresh water is a very limited resource. If you live around Lake Victoria, you might not relate, but that's what's happening globally. And even if you don't relate, you look at the number around cages. I know you'll be asking, how do you quantify how much water I use to produce a kilo of fish in a cage? But yes, it's very possible to quantify, and it's around 5,000 liters. Survival rate, again, just like FCR, not absolutes. It paints the picture. You have 65 to 85 in an open green pond. In a greenhouse pond, it's 70 to 90. So in short, you can see it's above the 65 and it's also above 85. So the potential is a bit higher. In cages, you can see it's as low as what's in open greenhouse pond, but you can go as high as 90 based on where you site your cage and how you operate your cages. In RAS, it should be about 90 to 99. Just put the 100% there, but it's possible to achieve that. The biggest question which people always ask, of course, is what's the cost of all these things? Because we're saying you need to do this as a business.
Sorry
And the
to cut
next,
you, John-Eric. Your
yeah.
time is up. Maybe you can wind up.
Oh,
we've got
sorry,
time.
just 1 minute. Yeah, so the last one is investment, and you can see that the pluses increase as you go across the board. So you'll need obviously more money in RAS than compared to green ponds. So that's why you see 1 plus, and the pluses increases as you go across all the way to RAS. So I believe I've tried my best to answer the question, what is in a system? And these are some of the things we consider. So I'll love to just leave it there because Sharon will be talking about the business later on.
Yes,
Thank you,
thank you so
Lydia.
much. Thank you, John-Eric. Thank you for respecting the time allocated to you. Next, we have Sharon. We'll have the third speaker. Then we'll have a joint Q&A session at the end of our session. I'd like to introduce Sharon Zola, analyst at Lattice Aquaculture Limited. She does a lot of wonderful things to support and drive the production of high quality, sustainable protein to feed the fast-growing population. Her goal is to create value and a positive impact in the aquaculture sector by leveraging in her huge finance background, since the business case element has been missing in the sector for a long time. She holds a degree in the Bachelor of Commerce Finance option with a first-class honors and has passed her CFA Level 1 and 2 from Strathmore University. She's also a part of the African Food Fellowship Leadership Program, Cohort 2, Aquaculture Fellow. And this is the fellows are emerging leaders from the private, public, and civic sectors who will shape the ambitions and agendas that are needed to transform the Africa's food systems. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Sharon. Sharon, welcome. She'll speak about the sustainable business management. Karibu sana.
Thank you, Lydia. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you. Thank you.
Yes, I'm in the middle of Makueni, so my internet is on and off. So maybe Lydia, when I drop off, you can let me know.
No problem.
Yes, so my name is Sharon Zola, as Lydia said, and I work for Lattice Aquaculture. And yes, my background is finance, but I've had a privilege to work in the aquaculture sector and use my skill for it. The next slide. Yes, so I'd like first to appreciate Alex because he talked about the sustainable aquaculture, and then John-Eric came and talked about the different systems. So from me, I'm going to be more specific and talk about the economics. The key questions that I want to ask you is, how will you make money out of it? Because for every commercial farmer, you need to make money out of it because it's a business. And managing a business involves planning. You need to plan, you need to organize, you need to control your activities so as to achieve that goal of making money. Next slide, please. So the first thing as a commercial farmer, the first thing you need to know and to do is to come up with a business plan. What is a business plan? A business plan is a roadmap to your success. It involves all the activities you plan to do, and it defines all the objectives and how you're going to achieve them. it doesn't need to be a big document that no one understands, but it's supposed to be a simple document that you yourself as a farmer, you are able to understand, as well as anyone, as you give an external audience, can be able to understand. I want to talk about some of the key elements of the business plan. The first one is, what is your vision? Why do you want to start aquaculture? You need to have that answer in your mind. And now we said for a commercial farmer, you need to make money out of it. What type of fish do you want to produce? Do you want to produce catfish? Do you want to produce tilapia? Do you want to produce any other fish that you want to produce? You need to have that answer in your head before you start even farming. What stage of fish do you want to deal with? Do you want to do fingerlings? Do you want to produce fingerlings? Do you want to nurse the first fingerlings, or do you want to focus on the growth? And at what prices do you want? You need to have a range of the prices that you want to sell your fish at. And you need to know your product. You need to know what is your advantage. You need to sell your product to the customers. You need also to analyze your markets. I've had Audrey and John Eric talk about it all the time. Before you do anything, you need to know your market. So for the business plan, you need to include it as well. The strategy, marketing strategy, you need to come up with a strategy. How are you going to get customers? Because they don't come from nowhere. You have to come up with a strategy to bring your customers to you. Planning, financial planning, this is very key, where most farmers don't do. You need to really think about your planning. You don't need to start farming and then in the next 5 months, you don't have feed, you don't have the money for feed, and then the fish start suffering. No, you need to plan for your finances. And budgeting, you need to budget for the feeds, for the fingerlings, and all of them. So I want to urge all the farmers, you need to come up with a business plan for your own and work on it, and it needs to control you so that you make money out of it. So after now you've had the business plan, the next step is execution, business execution. I know Audrey is going to talk about feed, so I'm not going to talk about it. So for me, what I want to talk about is record keeping, because that's a very key thing in also in the finances. When you're a farmer, because the cycle length is very long, so you need to track your costs, track your sales, and track your profits. And the advantage of having your records well is, even when you want to get funds from the financiers, when you have your record, there's a high potential that you're going to get finance. The next slide. So there are different types of records that you need to keep. The first one is anything to do production. It can be number of fingerlings you buy, even where you buy them, so that you can track the performance of the supplier, the cost of fingerlings, the stocking dates, the number of fingerlings to be stocked, the amount of feed to be bought at every stage, the cost of feed, the daily feed usage, the mortalities. Once you see your fish are starting to die, you need to record those number of pieces. Sampling, you need to sample, you need to see how your feed is doing. So you need to sample regularly, and also water quality. You need to look at your water and measure it regularly. Next slide. The other records that I would like to urge you farmers to keep is the other expenses, which are not related to production. It might be the water pumping costs, the fuel for the cage farmers, electricity costs, transport costs, labor costs, consumables for the kits for the water quality that we've talked about it earlier, and also any other costs related to running your farm. The next slide. The next record that I will urge you to keep is the sales record. This is now when your fish is ready for harvest and you want to sell it to the customer. So the key things that you need to record is the harvest dates, how many kilos you've harvested, the number of fish you've harvested, and the unit sales price, and also the customer profile. What do they like? Do they like it gutted? Do they like it at what grams? You need to record all of that. And based on those 3 records that we've talked about, that's when you will come up with your finance record, because your finance record will include all the cost of your production, all the other costs and the sales, so that you're able to calculate the profit and track it appropriately. Yes, so I want to urge the farmers, if you have not been recording, please do record your everything, your costs, your production, please do. And if you've been recording, keep up the good work. I think when you track it, you're going to see very huge progress. So for me to conclude, in conclusion, our product is fish. I know all of us, we are here because of fish. It is our product. Our main goal is to make profit. I insist, we need to make money. Most of the farmers, they just do it freestyle. When they sell the fish, they think they've made money, but when you compare to the cost, you've not made money. So we really need to know if you are making money or not, if you want to be commercial. And you need to be competitive from your other fish farmers and sell it at a price that the customer can still afford it. And these are the key things that I will urge you as I finish up to do, so that you'll be successful, to be the different farmer from the other farmers, to be different from them. The first one is you need to know your target market. We've talked about this a lot of times, and I'm still insisting, know your target markets. The next one, try as much as you can to keep the production costs as low as possible. Just try. And that's why record keeping comes in place. When you track your record, you can see which cost is taking a lot of money, and you can try to reduce it as much as you can. Adhere to the best aquaculture practices. Your experts are here. They've always told you to adhere with the best aquaculture practices. Be as efficient as possible. In terms of FCR, I know Audrey is going to talk about FCR, and also in terms of cycle length. Don't spend 2 years just growing a 300-gram fish. There's an efficient way to do it. And then, if possible, increase the number of production units. John Eric has talked about the production system. So if you want to benefit from the economies of scale, you need to increase your production units. Properly inform the market on your availability of fish. Before even you harvest, when they're still in the cages and in the ponds, you need to look for your customers. Tell them that you are coming with fish and ensure there's steady supply of your fish, so that everyone can know that you are reliable. Even when they want fish, they know they can go to you. Yes, the next slide. Yes, so this is my last slide. This farmer, you can see he's enjoying his fish, big and healthy. So I want to encourage all of you. Fish farming is a business, and it's possible to make money out of it. So thank you for listening to me. And I really, really look forward to see your business grow and make money out of it. Thank you. Back to you, Lydia.
Thank you so much, Sharon. You stated that we should not do fish farming as a hobby, rather but make it a business and gain from it. So yeah, thank you very much. This is now your Q&A session for John Eric and Sharon. There was a question in the chat when John Eric was presenting from the schedule. They were asking if what type of fish is it, whether this is African catfish or any other type of fish. John Eric?
So like Alex said, we mostly do tilapia and African catfish around here.
Yeah.
And we all know it's 70-30 or 80-20, 80 being to tilapia.
Mm-hmm.
So if you call it a schedule, as they call it in that question, then that's for tilapia.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, John Eric. Feel free to ask more questions in the chat. John Eric and Sharon will answer. But as they're doing that, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of the participants, especially those who have their videos on. You can see from wherever you are, you've taken your time to join us and learn. I'd like to appreciate you and thank you for sparing your time to be here with us. There's a question from Titus about the competition, and it's been answered by Claudia. He has asked what are the criterions to use to select the winners. So Claudia has answered it. The focus is on innovation, sustainability, efficiency, and then balancing profitability. That profitability part is what we've just discussed in the business case with Sharon. Yes. Since I can't see any other question, we can go to our next speaker. Her name is Audrey Nyambura. Audrey is a regional technical manager at Skretting Tunga Nutrition, who are also our partners for the competition. They will be awarding the best fish farmer with 2,000 kilograms of fish feed. That's a lot of feed, and I can take it to a very long time. So Audrey Nyambura is a technical advisor, Tunga Nutrition, which is a joint venture between Nutreco and Unga. She's a specialist of freshwater fish nutrition, catfish, tilapia, and trout. She's also a certified BRAS expert. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Audrey Nyambura. Karibu sana. She'll be telling us about practical farming and feed management insights. Karibu.
Lydia. Hello, everyone. I hope you're enjoying the webinar so far. You can hear me good?
Yes, we can.
All right. So as Lydia says, my name is Audrey. I work for Tunga Nutrition. It's a joint venture. Many of you probably have heard of Skretting, Unga, the product brands Fugo, Optiline, and all that. So that is where we are. Today, I'm here to talk about practical farming and feed management insights and the sustainability activities that we need to have around all this. I mean, everyone has been talking about, since we started fish, how to do it, sustainability, how to make money around it, and the things you need to do around that. But now I'm here to talk about exactly what you need to do. I'm sure this is where most people will have the most questions. I am very used to that. But please feel free to write them down. I will be ready for you. And if you don't get a full or satisfactory answer here on the webinar, you can have my contact and I can give you a personalized session later on because we don't have much time. So I will delve into it. I have tried to make everything as simple as possible. As I speak, feel free to read through the slides. I will try to just highlight key points and make everything as simple as possible. Farming principles. We are talking about farming, we're talking about fish, we're talking about making money. What are the three things that we need to know about the species that we want to farm? As they said, tilapia, catfish, and trout are the most common. Trout not so common, but it is there. But tilapia and catfish are the notorious ones in our region. Three things you need to know as a farmer is the biology of the species that you intend to farm. How do they live? What do they like? What can I do better? How do they live naturally? And how can I improve that to make them have a better life? The nutrition. Catfish, tilapia nutrition, trout nutrition are very different. So the minute you start feeding catfish feeds with tilapia feeds, you're already out on something. They may be close because, well, they're not so far from each other into nutrition, but the little tiny things that we key on when it comes to formulation, you will not find it in tilapia feeds, yet you're feeding catfish and trout the same. Farm and feed management. You can have your nutrition in check, you can have your biology in check, your farm is good and all that. But as a farm manager, there are so many things that you're supposed to do to have everything correct. So it's not always the fault of the water or the fault of the feed supplier, because that is where we farmers run to put the first accusation. We all know ourselves. So quick one on the biology. You need to know three things: the natural habitat, how are they living? How should I be able to put their environment to be the best? The genetics, I saw a question on genetics. I will answer that later. And the physiology of the fish. How does your fish look like? I have seen not so many times that a farmer wants to start farming and has no idea what is the difference between catfish and tilapia, and they want to do both. They want to mix them. They don't know the impact of that. Very small key factors. Next slide. Nutrition. Nutrition encompasses of a lot of aspects. We have the life stage requirements, which I'll talk about, the quality of the feed, the ingredients that were used to make the feed, the feed production process, the tilapia products that you're supposed to use, Well, I put my company there because why not? And then the life stages of the fish themselves. At what stage are they? Next slide. Life stage nutrition. This is where people go wrong a lot. And I know we'll get a lot of questions around this. Fish cannot feed on one type of feed from hatchery to when you're selling them. We need to get this correctly. There are very different types of feeds. It's like the same, it's saying feeding a baby from birth to adulthood on one thing, because it would not be okay. See how we focus on proteins for children so they can build their bodies. And when they're a little bit older, you can try do other things because they're healthy. The protein has already helped on what they're supposed to do. So this protein can be reduced and something else can be added to their diet. This is an example of what I'm saying. Next slide. Just an image to show an example of the things that we need to do. For broodstock, I'm sure we all know what broodstock is. If we're into aquaculture, the nutrition is different. They need different types of microingredients and minerals that help them to create eggs, make the best eggs, have good hatchability and survival. And then the next stage is the fingerlings that have very high protein. You notice it's almost 50% of the entire feed. And this is because it's the bodybuilding factor. And also tilapia is protein. Please do not expect to feed carbohydrates to your fish and they'll grow. It will not happen. And then at the grow out stage, the protein reduces and a little bit of more carbohydrates, and that helps in energy to swim around and maintain the weight. Next slide. Life stage requirements, as I mentioned, you're not going to feed the juvenile fish with one type of feed from when they hatch. Mostly goes to the hatchery owners to when they are leaving the fingerling stage, going into, let's say, grow out stage. This is from 0 to 25 grams. You need almost 4 to 5 different types of feed at this stage. I'm very sure most of the farmers on this platform are using 1 or 2 or none at all, or rather was grow out feed, and then you do some crushing process back at home, and then you have starter feed. No, it does not happen that way because that feed is not intended for them. The hatchery feed for most companies or most feed producers that I know include a lot of factors in this feed that help them with immunity, growth, survival. And the minute you do not get the feed correctly, you will have problems like the stunted growth I saw somebody saying about. You have problems like mortalities, and you blame everyone and say fish farming is not profitable, yet you did not do your research and you did not feed the feed that you were supposed to do. Next slide. In the entirety of talking about feed and everything that is around it, there are also specific ways of producing this feed that actually are beneficial to you as a farmer, and there are those that are not. So we have a lot of farmers having the intention or the goal of making feed for themselves, and that is called what you call the pelleting process, which is not bad, but it is not ideal. We have technologies that have come up to help you, the farmer, realize a profit by feeding the most efficient feed for your fish at every different stage. The two processes are, next slide, extrusion and pelleting. The extrusion process is how let me say most reputable feed producers make their feed. I'll give an example of my company. We use the extrusion process most definitely for feed that is meant to be extruded. There are other species that we do not grow in Africa that don't mind the pelleting process. There are other species that actually require the pelleting process, but keep in mind, we're talking about catfish, tilapia, those with trout, yes. Pelleting is a different process compared to extrusion. Extrusion means it's all about cooking the feed at high degrees with steam, compressing the feed, passing it through a die. A die is what makes the size of the pellet. Remember, when you go to the shop, you ask for 2 millimeter, 3 millimeter, 4 millimeter. How do we attain that size? We have die sizes. These die sizes make the pellet, you can see in the picture, the size that it's supposed to be. And once it comes out of the die, because of the difference in temperature and pressure, it, let's say, balloons up a little bit, air goes into the pellet, and this makes the pellet float. The sole reason why we have a floating pellet is for you, the farmer, to see whether your fish is feeding or not. This is the sole reason. There has nothing else to do with this. And there's a lot now more to that reason. There's about saving money, being efficient, and there's even most importantly, sustainability. We don't want to pollute. Those in cages, we don't want to pollute the area around it, because if the pellet is floating, I mean, it's at the bottom, it's sagging, it's making the water dirty. There are a lot of aspects to it. But for what should concern you the most right now is, I bought this feed. This feed is money in a different term. I need to see where it's going. So as a farmer, think about that. Before you buy feed made through the pelleting process that does not float, to make it worse, it was not cooked, which means bacteria and all harmful substances are still in the feed. So these are the small aspects that you need to think about. When we're doing pelleting in factories, we try to cook the feed before we pellet it. What we do at home is something totally different. We all know ourselves. I know you're shying behind the screens. That is what you do. So think about those two processes and see what will benefit you the most as a farmer in terms of making money, as Sharon said. Next slide. Feed management. There are several aspects that come into feed management. There's so many things we need to do as farmers to make sure that the feed we bought, the supplier we bought from, or the factory or the company that we bought from, is it the correct feed? Am I feeding it correctly? Things like this. Next slide. Feeding the correct levels. This is something that is very crucial. And many other times we are guilty of underfeeding. And sometimes for people who think, well, I know a lot, overfeeding. There's always a limit. There's always satiation, which means the fish cannot take any more for the day. Feeding levels are offered by the manufacturers. So if you're feeding a certain type of feed, please contact your manufacturer and ask them, what is your feeding level? What is your feeding table? Because I want you to go according to the product. It is always advisable to use one brand of feed every cycle. Do not mix. Key performance indicators in the entire feed management process. There are 6 very crucial things. FCR, as Generic mentioned. Feeding rates, what are you supposed to feed? What weight is your fish gaining on an average basis, monthly basis, daily basis? This is data you can easily know about. Mortality rates, Sharon mentioned that. Survival rates, how many fish survived? And that doesn't mean you subtract from mortality. When you're harvesting, you need to know exactly how many fish you have left, because there are factors like predators, things like monitor lizard come do fishing on your farm. Also, humans can come fish for you and you have no idea. So you stock 1,000 fish, you record 100 mortalities, you harvest 500 fish. You blame it on the culture, say aquaculture is not sustainable, it is not profitable. And the problem is you didn't even count, you didn't even have small aspects that come around making your fish survive. You did not fence your ponds, you did not put security around it. And that way you lose in a lot of things. Remember, you've been buying feed for an intended 900 because you have only collected 100. At the same time, you did not do what we call sampling in the middle, because that way you know. You did not grade your fish, because grading means moving them means weighing them. So those are processes that come hand in hand with knowing exactly how your business is doing. And the average body weight, which is also goes hand in hand with sampling and weight gain. These KPIs, as I mentioned, are the things that let's say, in simple terms, an extension officer visits your farm. These are the first things that you should be able to answer. What is the size of your fish right now? Please do not answer, I bought them a month ago and they were 3 months old. That is the most vague answer you can give somebody, and they're not going to help you. Do not tell me my fish are 3 months old. What does it mean? When did you start feeding them? I don't know when you started feeding them. Give answers like, I sampled 2 months ago, 2 weeks ago, and the size was 10 grams. I sampled 5 days ago, the size of 2 grams. The survival rate, I already talked about it. The mortality rate, how many fish died. Average daily weight gain. You should be able to calculate this from all the data that you record from a process called sampling. Sampling is weighing a small percentage of your fish individually or in bulk and then counting them and making an average calculation of what's the size of your fish at a given point in time. Next slide. Farm data collection. This has already been mentioned very, very much by Sharon. I like how she put it in the aspect of it is totally related to whether your farm is profitable or not. The next slide. We have stocking and harvesting data. This is very, very crucial. The stocking date. When did you stock? Number of fish stocked, the stocking biomass, the harvest dates that you expect, or rather when you will harvest, or rather when you harvested, if the cycle is already complete, the biomass harvested, the biomass increase, the total feed given to the fish at the time, the cycle's FCR, and a remark as a farmer. Do you think you did well? Record it down. Next time you have a cycle, you'll benchmark on yourself. Next time your neighbor has a cycle, they're able to benchmark on data that is almost similar, close to theirs, because you're in the same region. You start making a little bit of sense. And this is why I say sometimes that this is what fish farming means. And it doesn't come off as a hobby. If I come to your farm and you tell me you don't know the size of your fish and you've never sampled, you just bought them from a certain hatchery, I don't know where, and you have them, and what feed are you feeding, what the supplier gave me, what the distributor gave me at the shop, oh my goodness, there is nothing you're doing. The daily data to be collected by you or the farm manager on your farm or the person you have left to take care of your farm. The date, the cage number, pond number, tank number, the feed given, the time the feed was given, the number of dead fish, the weight of the dead fish, the medication used, if any, at the time, and the remark for the day. Many of the times we're busy, so we're not able to be there on the farm. Have somewhere where whoever is there on the farm can give accountability of what happened. Feed is meant to be fed in a span of the whole day, the recommendation that you're given. But many of the times we get people, we employ some, well, let's call them characters, because he wants to dump all the feed for the day in the water and then disappear. Go do something on their phone on TikTok. This is making you go at a great loss. But since you also don't care, you don't ask what happened, show me the recordings, tell me what happened, you will never know. And of course, fish farming is going to end up being not a profitable business for you. The daily and weekly water quality parameters, when you can, measure the NO2, there's a date, of course. Temperature is a must. NH3 is a must, that is ammonia. You need to know how much ammonia is in your water. The dissolved oxygen is not very compulsory, but when you're doing an intensive system, it is a must. The pH is a must. Water renewal rate is a must. Flow rates, how the water is coming in and going out. This is for more intensive systems. And of course, a remark for the week. Next slides. And I think we're good for the day. So anyone has a question? Lydia?
Thank you, Audrey. I'm glad that we have a few more minutes that we can use to answer so many questions.
Okay.
Yes. So I'll start with the one from before, during Alex's section, which was involved with fish feed. And this was from Stephen Achachi. He has a pond of 20 by 10 with a capacity of 1,500 fish species. And he's been feeding his fish for the last 6 months. And they have stunted growth. I have started growth of fish. Just imagine with all the requirements needed in farm management. What do you think could be the problem? And remember, I should have harvested my fish by now. What do you think about that? Then, Loon, could you want me to put the question and then you'll answer collectively?
That's better.
Then we have Lundo. Fish feed can be a challenge in pisciculture, especially when we use the industrial feeds. Is there another system that we can use when we are running out of industrial feeds? That's a question from Lundo. And he also asked, what is the normal body weight of a very well-managed and well-fed tilapia in a period of 3 months? Yes. Fred Omolo. So all the speakers, feel free to listen to the questions. If if there's any that you're interested in answering, you can take Alex, Generic, and Sharon. Fred Omolo asks, like in crops, we have grafted ones which are doing well in production. Is there fish species that are also doing good than others, like in terms of size, weight, a shorter period of its production? That's a question from Fred Omolo. Next, Stephen Achachi asked, I saw some of my fish with something like cotton in the mouth, of which I believe is a disease. How can I control this? The fish are in the cage. Caroline Joga asked, is it possible to harvest eggs in catfish? Fred asked, I had some catfish. I was doing good feeding them, but after 6 months, they were still very young. What could be the problem? Right. I think you can answer those for now. Then if there's any more, you can ask them. So Audrey, I think you should take the floor. Then we can go to Alex, Jonique, and Sharon.
All right, okay. I'll answer the best I can for the few that have mentioned right now. Let's talk about fish not growing, and this will apply to the people with stunted growth questions. There's somebody with catfish, there's somebody with tilapia. The first question, I think, from Stephen. There are a lot of aspects to this. The problem with aquaculture generally, especially with some species, so many things are interconnected that when you miss one thing, you will not be able to recover it. Things to an estimate of not feeding for a week is going to make your fish get stunted growth. This is what happens. Fish are such efficient converters that when you feed them, they gain the weight. When you stop feeding them, they equally lose it, especially in an aquaculture system where we are the program is fattening to move it and get it out into the market. I mean, it's time, fast. So if you've not planned yourself enough to have the feed, where you're not having a break of not more than 3 days, you will start experiencing weight losses. And if you keep doing this, it's going to be 2 steps ahead, 3 steps behind. So that's one crucial part that farmers need to know. Have your feed ready for a certain period of time. Do not start looking for feed after you have stocked. You're going to go at a loss, after a very great loss. So as I mentioned, a lot of things are interconnected. There's a lot that I cannot answer that question professionally if I have not seen a lot of your data. You have stunted growth. What is your water quality? Where do you get your water from? Are your fish healthy? Is your fish looking sickly or having any problems? Is the skin of your fish okay? There's so many things that can lead to my fish is not growing because of these reasons. But many other times it attributes to water quality, the health of your fish, the genetic strain of your fish, where you bought your fingerlings. Are they a certified hatchery? Are they doing inbreeding? Is it good fingerling? Have you heard of anyone who's bought from there and their fish grew quite all right? Did you change your water regularly? These are the things that you need to ask yourself. I would advise these 2 people to reach out to me and I can maybe check on what they're doing, give them a more detailed response that is not here, and I can help you more with that. Somebody asked about something alternatively to do when you do not have commercial feeds. I know something that has been happening, which is getting better right now. There has been a lot of shortage of raw material in most milling companies, not just mine. Most people don't have feed. Feed is late. And also a lot of feed is imported. A portion of ours is imported too, although we do produce locally. But my advice to anyone who is starting a cycle, stocking, please have your feed ready for the next few months. Not ready, it's in the shop. Ready, I stored it. Feed has lifespan of 12 to 18 months. You can buy it prior. This now attributes to having everything ready, which means your finances need to be ready. The problem with fish, it's not like chicken. It's not like cows that you're just gonna open the doors and they go and eat grass. If you don't feed them, they're not gonna eat and they're not going to lose weight. It's worse when your system is an indoor system where there's no green water, there's no supplementary zooplankton as a snack to sustain their survival, small aspects around this. But you need to have your feed ready. Please do not depend on the distributor who brings the feed once in a while, unless you have a formal agreement with them to supply. But still, as a farmer, I have seen many farms come up with the reason I did not have feed. But we are producing feed at the factory, so to be very, very honest, it is you. We're trying to make distribution cycles a bit better. But as a farmer, as I said, aquaculture is still also in its infancy in the region. We're still trying to know what to do, what not to do, how to put the feed, where to put it, where is the highest buyer areas from. But please plan yourself. Do not have a cycle where you have a break. You will lose a lot in FCR, which translates to the economic FCR, which translates to you losing a lot of money. Size of tilapia at 3 months. These are the kind of questions I just shake my head about. So it's hard to know, because 3 months, is it 3 months from hatch? Is it 3 months from stocking at 5 grams? Is it 3 months from stocking at 0.5 grams? And to be very honest, time is not the factor to use to tell. Your sampling size is, but generally there's a standard rate. This comes with feed milling companies. They tell you, feed my feed for this amount of time, you will be at this size at this point. So I cannot really answer you until you tell me at what size. Did you start at 10 grams? Did you start at 25 grams? Did you start at 200 and you want to finish all the way to a kg? That's a very broad question. So 3 months is just a timeline. Tell me what point you're starting, what you're feeding, because it could be at 3 months and you're, giving them not what is not supposed to be given to them, or you're underfeeding or overfeeding. There's a lot of aspects to it. So please reach out to me and I will help you out with that. Genetically improved fish species, these are very much available. It's just that we're not very much exposed to them. And also, we're Africans, we already have the perspective. We already have a problem eating farmed fish. I'm not sure very well you will have a good experience with genetically improved tilapia, but something like the gift strain, the genetically improved farmed tilapia that we get from a lot of European countries and also from China and Asia and all that. These are available. They do cause a lot of problems most of the time. And to be honest, we all know the reason why Ghana was where it was, because of all the problems they had. And it's really the origin of this uncontrolled importation of these strains. To be honest, we still have very good local strains, and they're good hatcheries doing good breeding and getting the best out of it in terms of weight, size, length, health, and immunity. Source out locally, you will get something. If you can import, and you will have helped us with the diversity of the strains. But if you ask me personally, we're not yet there. We're not yet there as Africans yet. Harvesting of eggs in catfish, yes, it's possible. Artificial propagation, this is done in hatcheries also. You can buy fingerlings there, or you can land the propagation and you can breed the fingerlings for yourself. I think those are all my questions. There was a disease question. Cotton in the mouth should be saprolegnia, if I'm not wrong. Please, John Eric, help me with this. Not a pathologist that much, but should be saprolegnia. It's a fungus. I will turn over to John Eric to help me with what I've not helped with.
Thank you, Audrey. Thank you so much. John Eric, maybe you could pick that up.
Yeah, I don't know whether you guys can hear me. I've been
Yes, you can.
on and off with my internet.
We can hear you.
So the white stuff is most definitely fungus, unless you're doing something with your fish, a chachi. I remember who asked that question. So it has to be a fungus, but like Audrey said, we haven't seen the fish. We can't say with absolute certainty what it is. But mostly what's important is the control of the disease. And the goal for any commercial fish farmer is try to prevent the disease, because most of the time treatment might be tricky. So try to prevent and work on your water quality, your stocking densities, and use the right feed. Your fish will be fine. Also look at the quality of fingerlings that you buy, and basically your fish should be okay. So I think Audrey answered most of the questions. So I don't know if there are more questions.
Yes.
And I would advise that maybe we tackle them one by one instead of full list. Because,
Yes,
yeah.
no problem, no problem. So this is a question from Charity Kelsey. She says, Audrey, great presentation. Kindly do not forget to share your contact. Audrey, let us know how they can reach you. What do you think about black soldier fly insects as protein supplement for fish feeds? Maybe Audrey, you can take this up.
Yes, sure. BSF is, of course, a very good solution for alternative proteins. Right now, we are also looking at that aspect of trying to use alternative proteins even in our millings, because soya, which is the most common and being used right now in most feeds, not just for fish, but also cows, goats, every other animal that is being fed and bred, is really expensive, very not available. It's there, but it's a hassle, and there's a lot around it. And this goes with all the other proteins. Some are expensive, even more expensive. This is blood meal, bone meal, poultry meal, stuff like that. BSF is a very good solution. We have done some trials around this with generic, and they are quite promising. But as a supplement, as a whole insect, I wouldn't advise it. Although people are doing it, it's fine. It's not life and death. It's not a bad practice. If you ask me, I would prefer it being incorporated in the extrusion processes and feed manufacture and formulation more, because it is very useful, has good fat, good protein, less of farmers buying the insect itself and feeding them to their fish. You can use it as a supplement, but do not expect the results that you'd expect from well-formulated nutritional diets. That's what I'd say.
Thank you, Audrey. Generic, Alex, do you have any addition on that?
Yeah, so I think I've seen your work, Kelsey, on LinkedIn, and it's quite impressive. So Audrey, just to give you context, she does black soldier fly, and that's why I think it would be very crucial that you guys, link up, because if you say availability is the issue, then Kelsey's, providing the solution. So yeah, as Audrey said, we've done the trials. It's all towards the positive, and anyone who's doing black soldier fly, I would always encourage them to keep doing it. The problem is the scale. We need very large quantities if you are to use them, and that's what most people are trying to figure out. How do we scale up? Yeah.
Thank you, Alex.
Okay, I think just to add on what the speakers have alluded to, I'm looking at it at the sustainability part of it. Yes, for aquaculture to be sustainable, we are saying that we should try as much as we can to avoid those feed ingredients which causes competition to human foods. And this is mostly for the local farmers who are relying on the fish meal. So you find there's always a factor of season and then transport. And that's why they are opting for alternative protein sources like BSF. On the other end, why BSF is proving to be superior is the whole discussion around the agri-circularity at farm level. Yes, in as much the end product will lead to alternative fish feed ingredients, you also get other benefits when it comes to recycling your waste within the farm, which can also be used as a source of fertilizer on the farm. So yes, these are now where the research and development is coming in to unlock the sustainability within the aquaculture value chain. Thank you. Back to you, Lydia.
Thank you very much. We also have a few more questions. Maybe you can try to answer them very fast. What causes low FCR for us compared to the others, yet there is tight control of pond parameters? Generic, Audrey? Audrey.
All right. John Mosia, I can see your question and I know you and I know where you're coming from. I think you mean to ask what causes the FCR to be better in RAS? Not because the way you've asked it, it looks like it's a bad thing that the FCR is low, yet it's a good thing that the FCR is low. And it is because you have control of these parameters that the FCR is low. You can control your temperature. You can maintain it at 26, 27, 28. You can control your water. You can make sure it's clean because it's circulating. And then you have bacteria that is removing all the ammonia from the system. So low FCR is a good thing. The higher FCRs are the problem. Look at it this way. Economic FCR means if you are feeding, FCR means the amount of feed you use to grow fish to 1 kg. So if you have an FCR of 1.5, and then maybe the cost of feed is 50 shillings a kg, it means it costs you 150 shillings to grow fish to 1 kg. If your FCR is 2, means it's 200. Your FCR is 2.5, means it's 250. And yet all the three of you have the result of 1 kg. So you can imagine that. So a low FCR is a good thing, and that is what we're aiming at. And many other times it comes along with control of these water quality parameters, good farm management, and proper feed.
Thank you very much, Audrey. How can we reduce the production cost? This is a question from Rogers Oyola. Sharon, are you around? Sharon, can't see her. Maybe Janelle, you can take that question.
I'm back.
You're back. Okay. Rogers is asking how we can reduce the production
I didn't
cost.
hear the question.
How can we reduce the production cost?
Sorry. Okay, maybe I can take it up and then Generic can continue. So for me, I will suggest
We lost you, Sharon? I think we lost her. Generic?
Yeah, let me respond to that.
I will
So
not buy it in an expensive price. Can you hear me?
We had lost you for some time. Are you back? We can now hear you.
Yes, you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes, so I was talking about the FCR. Rogers, you need to work on your FCR so as to reduce your cost of production because feed takes 70% of your production cost. And also I was saying about the economies of scale, increasing the number of production units so that you can be able to enjoy the lower prices and you can be able to lower your production costs. Yes.
Thank you, Sharon. Let's go to the next question. We don't have much time. How to undertake medication administration to fish in RAS since fish are many and water is in constant flow. Audrey.
Sure. In the RAS systems, it's quite a technical thing to undertake medication, considering also the stocking density that you have at the moment. Before you get to the point of administering medication, there should have been a lot of red flags around the way, mortalities, fish dying. And by the time you're considering antibiotics or even anything as subtle as a salt bath, you have seen things, you have seen mortalities, you have seen fish having funny swimming habits, discolored fish not with the same color as usually as they are. As a farmer, these are the first things that you normally see. I do not really advocate for medications. I advocate for prevention. So there's something that you are initially doing wrong. Mostly your water has a problem, or rather where you bought your fingerlings, these fingerlings might have come with a disease and matured up on your farm. And the problem is if the system, if the farm is interconnected, the units are interconnected in a way where the water coming from this unit is going to this unit, your disease will spread. My first advice, sometimes if you're able to, single out units. So if a unit has a problem, you can address it by itself. You can stop feeding that unit. Many other times, salt baths works because the diseases we have a lot around are fungal, bacterial, and these things that salt helps. Salt is harmless and can work within a few days, and things can go back to normal. If not, if you're having too many mortalities, cull that stock. Just do away with it and start afresh again. This also goes to stunted growth. Once your fish are stunted and you've been having back and forth of feeding and proper feeding, you're not going to recover anything in that period of time. Just cull the stock and start afresh, this time with a plan of feed, because feed is quite crucial. I hope that answers.
Thank you, Audrey. I can see that our time is up. I'll just take one more question, and then the rest you can just email or contact us in the aquaculture email, which is shared by Cloudy. So you can just contact you can just copy your question to that email and we'll answer you directly, or you can just call us on that number and we're able to address your questions or concerns directly. So Alex, which stage of fish growth is most important and requires close attention as far as survival rate is concerned? You also said also growth rates. Is that a question? You can take that question.
I think I can respond to that. For me, I considered the fingerling stage. Immediately you've done your stocking, kindly ensure you get things right. Once you get it wrong at fingerling stage, yes, in as much you are going to correct it later, you'll not get back to your growth curve. There is a growth curve which defines the growth of fish, and therefore it is a matter of time and size of the fish, and therefore the moment you'll have your curve leveling off, for it to peak again, it is going to cost you more, and therefore kindly ensure you get the right feed, you get your water quality parameters very well when your fish are still at the fingerling to post fingerling stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Audrey, you have something to say?
Yeah, a quick one. I'm reading something on the comment section. I didn't want to let him go without an answer. Somebody asked about having liner ponds and not wanting to drain them, but wants to keep them clean. Now, as John Eric mentioned in one of his slides, that there are ponds that you're able to control some things and there are things you're not able to control. The thing about liner ponds is you have to drain them at some point. I know it's painful losing that water. That's why it has 1+ in terms of control, because you have to drain this water at some point and change it over. The stocking density is so low. Feels like a lot of work, but that is what it needs. To have to drain this and get the dirt off the ground is very crucial, mostly because if you're going to introduce another cycle in there, you have to sanitize, say not so many words, or clean it or kill the bacteria. And this doesn't even require you to do a lot of things. It just needs this pond exposed to the sun for a week. And a lot of things die under the sun, especially those that like to live in the water. So you have to drain it for your own benefit. Drain the pond, do your calculations on where you'll get the water for the next cycle, and you'll have a cleaner, smoother process with cleaner water, fresh cycle, compared to just hand picking out fish. Your imagination tells you the fish are over, and then you put in smaller fish. It's even more problems, because even the bigger fish that you left in there, since you cannot see because the water is dirty, are going to cause a lot of problems for the smaller ones that you introduced. And it's going to be a hierarchy of problem on problem. Drain the pond, please.
Thank you, Audrey. So the only questions we haven't answered are from John Mwasia, and also her name is Tosho. So John is asking about marketing options that this platform can provide for fish, since the competition is high. Generic, I'm sure you're able to give him an insight on that. Can you give an answer in 2 seconds on that?
Always start with the market. So we have market for all sizes of fish. Just decide which market first and then grow fish to that size and sell them.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. Is it sound to grow fingerlings hatched from already stocked breed sourced from hatcheries? Will hatched fingerlings have the same vitality as the hatchery sourced breed? Alex?
Again, as I said, I think what matters here is about the history of the hatchery. The hatchery has a myriad of factors which comes into play. We have the broodstock management. How are they managing the broodstock? Is there a breeding program within the farm? So you'll always find there are factors which are always into play. Saying being hatched, or you'll find, yes, all of these fingerlings are going to be hatched. And therefore, the source will come from how the broodstock has been managed. So if the farm is not keen on breeding, then you'll end up having the inbreeding instances. And therefore, the fingerlings, which always comes from that generation, will always be stunted. And this goes to farmers. I'll encourage farmers that they've been doing the mixed cropping, whereby both males and female are in the same pond. But what you have to realize, those are brothers and sisters, and therefore any breeding which comes in that pond, that is purely inbreeding, which is taking place. And therefore, those fingerlings lacks vitality for the performance of the farm. So always endeavor to clear your stock. Everything, clear it, and then go to the authenticated nursery, hatchery, where you can source your fingerlings for now the next cycle. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you so much to our speakers for the insights that they have brought to this session. It's been it's been a wealth of information that has been shared in this short period of time. We've tried to condense the content according to the time that we have. Of course, there's so much that could have been said, and that's why on your screen you can see the How to Do Aquaculture platform, which Claudia will give a brief overview of what it's about and how you can make use of it. Claudia?
Thank you, Lydia, and thank you to all the speakers, first of all. And yes, if you're interested in knowing more about feed management, sustainability, how to set up a fish farm, fish ponds, liners, different FCR rates, anything that you're interested, it's all divided in different courses, focusing on catfish and tilapia. So go to howtodoagriculture.com or scan the QR code and please register. No, it's all for free. Click on the African continent, and that's how you come with the tilapia and the catfish courses. They're all introduction videos and questions to it. You can also gain some certificates, post them on your LinkedIn, and help us to share the word. howtodoagriculture.com. That's where to go to. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Claudia. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of Bart Powells, who is part of the Dutch embassy, who have made all this happen ever since we started the Best Fish Farmer competition. They have been supporting us and they've sponsored all our engagements so that we can be able to relay this information to all of you. So I'd like to say thank you to Bart, thank you to the Dutch embassy for joining us in this room and also for supporting us to do this engagement. So on your screen, you can see the Best Fish Farmer Competition 2024 timeline, which is already ongoing. We started on the 1st of January, and this is the first webinar that we have done. We're going to have the second webinar on the 16th of February 2024, and it will be on the sustainable aquaculture health management. So please purpose to join us on that webinar, which will be shared on our social. So just watch out on our social platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, Aquaculture Academy, Lattice, or Larif. You'll see that we have we'll have given you the access to the link that you can use to join the second webinar on the 16th of February. Then the competition will close on the 29th of February, followed by the selection of the top 5. Then we'll finally have the award ceremony on the 12th of April, which will be a physical event in Kisumu. So we hope to see you there. We hope to see you there. And I'd also like to welcome the winners of the 2021-2023 winners of the Best Fish Farmer competition, who can share a little something on how they are doing since the competition. George Muga, who is the winner of the past year, can you please say hi to us so that we can know how you're doing after the competition? George?
Hi, everyone.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
You're good. Good to see you. Good to hear from you. You're all is well?
We're doing fine.
Yes.
And
How's the
I hope to meet you during the competition in Kisumu.
Good. Would you encourage people to join us, to join the competition? Tell them how it's impacted you.
Yeah, sure. I think it's a good idea to join because there's a lot to gain. Like now already we are getting from the knowledge, we are getting from the platform.
Yes.
Then if you succeed to be a winner, there are so many things you'll be able to gain. More so the training part of it, which is very important to all of us.
Yes.
And I think I would really encourage people to try to participate in the competition.
Thank you, George. Thank you so much for saying hi to us. We also have Vincent. Vincent, just say a quick hi. Vincent was the winner for last year, Best Fish Farmer competition. Could you just say hi to us, Vincent?
Hi everyone. Hi Lydia.
Hi. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yes. So background on Vincent's journey in the Best Fish Farmer competition is on our YouTube platform. I think the link was shared. Maybe a colleague of mine can reshare so that you can see Vincent's story and how he was able to leverage on the Best Fish Farmer competition last year. I'd also like to acknowledge Daniel Wafula, who was the student winner last year in 3rd place. So for the students, they get an opportunity to attend the learning engagement that we have as the Best Fish Farmer competition. And they're also able to get mentorship programs through internships with any of the collaborating companies, and they'll be able to job shadow and see how projects are executed, how farmers are able to get the farm consults, and so forth. So George, thank you for joining us and thank you for your great performance in the last year's competition. So with that, please sign up for the Best Fish Farmer competition, whose sign up is ending at the end of January. The link is there. You can scan the QR code, or you can just click on the link that has been shared on the chat by my colleagues. It's been shared a couple of times, so you will get it there. And yeah, I'd like to say thank you again. Thank you for attending this webinar. Thank you for staying with us even past time. Thank you for staying with us even the beginning of the weekend. We'd like to say thank you. And yeah, we look forward to see you in the next webinar. We look forward for you to sign up. Have a lovely evening. You're free to leave. Thank you.